And hello, everybody. Welcome to this Photoville edition of Leica Conversations. My name is Tom Smith, and I'm the director of the Leica Academy and your host for today's program. Happy you all could be with us. For those of you who it's your first time here, please let us know where you're viewing from by making a comment in the chat window. And welcome, thanks for being here. Be talking to Jennifer McClure, who is a New York-based fine art photographer, and she's known for her conceptual approach to personal documentary projects. In recent years, she has focused on self-portraiture, often using herself and her experiences as subject matter. In 2017 and in 2019, she was a top 50 finalist in the Critical Mass competition. She's twice been the winner of the Arthur Griffin Legacy Award from the Griffin Museum of Photography. Her work is widely exhibited and has appeared in Vogue, Dwell, PDN, and National Geographic Traveler. It's my pleasure to welcome Jennifer McClure to the program.
Hi, Tom.
Hey, Jennifer, thank you for being here. I can't wait to get into this. I said to everybody, this is a little bit different in that oftentimes, you know, we have a complete conversation throughout the program. And this one is different in that you're going to give us a presentation of your work, and then we'll do some Q&A at the end. So for everybody listening, as Jennifer is presenting her work, as questions come to mind, please put those in and I'll make a note of them, and we'll get to as many of them as possible by the end of the program. Jennifer, to get us kicked off here, can you let us know, how the project you're going to share with us, how it started?
How it started? Well, I don't think I had any idea that I was creating a visual diary when this started. I think when this all first happened, we thought it would last 2 weeks. We thought everybody would stay home. It would be scary for a little while, and then it would be over. And none of us realized that it was going to be this long process. And in New York especially, it was terrifying in the beginning because we had so many cases right off the bat. And we heard sirens going past our windows every single day. I just started making pictures out of desperation, basically, just trying to get through the day. And these first couple photos I actually made, I think 3 or 4 days before everything shut down, which was Friday the 13th in March, which you can't ever forget because of that. And it's in those other 2 photos, I think I had some sense that something was looming. I must have, because those photos have an eerie sense to them. And I took a class once with Sig Harvey years ago, and she said that your subconscious is streets ahead of your thinking mind. And that's always stuck with me. And I think that's what happened as this project started. And so the baby had been in daycare a couple of days a week prior to that. And now she was home all the time. And my husband was home all the time. And like I said, the world was kind of spinning and we didn't know what was going on. And my husband and I are both in a higher risk category. So we stayed inside. He would go out every now and then to get supplies, anything that we needed, but the baby and I especially were indoors for the first month. And so I just picked up the camera, and I had always before made projects that were thought out and conceptual, and the ideas took time to kind of cook. And with these, it was just a daily exercise. And what started to happen is that, I realized it was getting me through the day. It made me feel like I had a purpose. And even if all I did the rest of the day was worry and watch the news and take care of the baby, if I made a photo, I felt like everything was going to be all right. And this is one of the ball, if you can go back to the ball. This is one of the first photos I made where I realized that I was kind of starting to have a style with these photos. And I didn't notice it until people started to comment and tell me, your photos all have this darkness to them. And again, that's the subconscious. Part of it was also you know, if you live in Manhattan, you know we have very small apartments, and there's a lot of clutter, and there are toys everywhere. And honestly, part of having a style was just trying to block out all of the clutter. And also following the light. I think if you're trying to document your own life and you're in the same place for a long time, you start to notice how the light moves through the room or outdoors, and you're ready. You know, I would have my camera at 2:30 every afternoon. I would have my camera ready, and I would have it right there next to me on the couch, set to the right setting, so when she stepped into that light, I could take a photo. And I was trying to document everything about our daily lives. What we did to entertain her. It's hard to entertain a baby all day, every day. I think you could see previously too, she was outside with a soccer ball because all we did was go to our front stoop. That one right here, that was our yard. That was our exercise. And so I just wanted to have all of this on record. And like I said, part of it was as an exercise for myself, and part of it was also the very real fear that something could happen at any point to one of us. And I was suddenly regretting not having taken photos every single day of her life prior to this.
And at some point, the paraphernalia that we are all dealing with COVID started to be something you included in the, how did it come to be a part of the project?
Well, I started to notice that she was having reactions to some of these things. You know, everything is new to a baby or a toddler, but especially with the masks and the gloves and the hand sanitizer, all of these items, she was just totally attracted to. And she didn't have any assigned meaning to give to that. I mean, we would look at the mask and the gloves, and they were scary things to us because they meant there's something to be afraid of. But for her, they were more toys and playthings. And this was also the beginning of when I realized that this thing was going to stick around for a while. And so I started doing some more setup shots rather than the diaristic shots. And so these I would light, and I would set up a backdrop, get the tripod out, and set up the whole scene, and just sit with her with these objects and see what she would do with them and see how she reacted when she was allowed to really focus. And I also started, you know, we spent a lot of time at this window because we weren't going outdoors that much. So we would prop her up in the window, and we would spend a lot of time saying, hello car, hello tree, hello dog. And I realized it was these little moments. These were the things that I really wanted to hold on to. And as I started to think about the seasons changing too, I realized that the view outside our window was going to change over time. And what if we were still stuck in here? And we had to practice washing hands a lot. And this is still a problem. She still doesn't love it, but she's learning. I mean, these are all the things that I feel like our kids who are this age are going to grow up thinking. I mean, it is a good thing to wash your hands all the time, but maybe not as much as we have her wash them. And she's now, when we leave the house, she'll stop and she'll say, mask, camera. She knows.
Speak to that a little bit, Jennifer, in terms of, you know, you're a mom, like many moms out there dealing with, you know, taking care of being the primary caregiver, but then also you're a photographer, and this instinct to document the everyday. How did your daughter react to that? Or how old was she when you first started?
Well, I've been taking photographs, not so much the first year. The first year is just so hard. But the second year, I've been able to take a lot more photographs. And she's generally okay with it because she knows she's getting my full attention. She knows the photograph is a way of really focusing on her. And what toddler doesn't love that? There have been times recently, now that she's getting older, where she'll say, you know, no camera, mommy.
Wow.
Which
wow.
breaks my heart, and I'm devastated, but I have to honor that. And there's sometimes too, you know, where we go out and I think to myself, just be a mom this time. Don't bring your camera. Just hang out with your kid, hang out with other, you know, just be that, be the mom.
Speak to that for a little bit, Jennifer. That's a common question that we'll get in these programs is, you know, many of the people watching are either professional or very serious amateur photographers. And it's a common question of how do I balance this desire to document, but also be present? How does that work for you?
It's hard. It's hard. And I mean, one thing that happens, like I said, is having my camera nearby set to the settings I know I need it set to, so I can grab it and click. So I don't waste a lot of time composing and checking the light. I think that's what takes you out of it. But if I'm just grabbing my camera and taking a few frames, and then I'm back to being a mom, it's okay. If that makes sense. And I also, you know, I always have the camera out when we go outside and I have it on a strap so that I can easily throw it behind me and be there for what she needs me to be there for. So I can help her up the slide, so I can climb around with her. I can just move it to the back. And some days I go out and I don't use the camera at all. Some days I go out and I don't take the camera. And some days I go out and the perfect photo presents itself and all I have is my iPhone, and I kick myself for months after that.
Well, so there were some questions that are coming through here in terms of talk about your gear a little bit and how simplifying your gear has been so important. And, you know, it's a Leica program. So if you tie in Leica and how that's been critical to what you're doing, that'd be great.
Yeah,
too.
the Leica was a game changer for me, especially with this kid. The Leica that I have has the touch focus and simultaneous shutter release.
Gotcha,
I don't know
sure.
if they all have that these days, but during this phase, that's what I was using because she's so fast. I don't have time to set it to, you know, the track focusing and get her in the frame. So I have to have it at a certain shutter speed that I know will freeze her movement as best as I can. Usually that means my aperture is pretty wide open. And then what I'll change in that, what I have on the speed function is the ISO. So I can just move the ISO up and down as I need it, although I try and keep that at 200. And I end up with a ton of blurry shots. And I'm totally fine with that. I've made peace with that. I have full hard drives because what happens is you'll get great shots somewhere in the mix. And I mean, the previous shot is when we started to go outside again after a month. And we wore our masks and we went to visit flowers first thing, as soon as we could. We felt like it had been so gray and so dark and spring was finally coming. I mean, was that just me? That whole first month just seemed so bleak, didn't it?
Well, I feel like, you know, the whole world went through this period where there was this novelty to the idea that, you know, let's make the best of this and be together and capture our family moments. And then maybe, you know, 5-6 months into this, that started to wear off. And I wanted a two-part question here. People are asking, in terms of a shot like this, what are you doing as far as getting yourself in the picture, and are you using a remote, or the technical question? And then the follow-up to that is more to this: what do you do when the novelty is worn off? You know.
Oh, that's so hard. That's kind of where we are now. It's really hard. But let's go first. We'll answer the tech part of this one. So again, the thing about being in the same space for a long time is you notice the light, you watch the light, you can make a note of something and come back to it the next day at the same time and hope that the light is the same. And that's what I had done with this one. And what I did is I knew I didn't have a lot of time, so I pulled out the diaper genie and I put the camera on top of the diaper genie and I set it for interval shooting.
Gotcha. Which is available in the Leica Q2 and in the CL.
In the CL, yes. Right. So I did the interval shooting and I set the focus when I have to be on the other side of the camera, I set the focus to face detection.
Very good. That's
And
a
that
great,
I
great
find
tip.
gets it much sharper for me. And again, most of these were out of focus, but I got the one with the right light. So you have to be willing to shoot a ton and just be willing to throw a lot away in order to get these.
And so for you, just to stay with this technical for a minute, you've found the intervalometer has been better than, say, using the Leica Photos app, triggering it from your phone?
Oh, well, I couldn't have a phone out with a toddler.
Got it.
As soon as she sees a phone, she thinks it's time to watch Elmo. And she grabs it and was obsessed with it. She's better now. We've got her trained to not. But still, like, I just couldn't have a phone with her. I think if you're working with adults, you can certainly do that. That would be great.
Talk to us a little bit about this particular picture and how also we're talking about getting past the novelty and yes, documenting every day, but finding new things to shoot, new ways of approaching this. The studio setup seemed to be one step for you in that. Yeah.
The studio setups are away. Yeah, that's the thing. When you, like I said, you're in the same space, which gives you the advantage of knowing the space really well, but then your challenge is how do you show it in a really fresh way? And how do you show something that isn't a snapshot of your kid? Like, what takes it from being a cute photo to something that's new and saying something new?
Speak to that a little bit more, Jennifer. What is that to you? What the images? I mean, you're still in the midst of this project, and you haven't gotten to the editing yet. But what is that for the audience? What's the differentiator between a snapshot and something that people connect to in a larger way?
Well, the connection part still surprises me. I can't really speak to why. It's still shocking to me that people connect. But what I look for is a photo that I love. And I look for a photo that I haven't seen before. That's what I'm looking for. If I look at tons of photography all the time. I do it for teaching and I do it just because I love it. And, there are certain times where you're bound to repeat something that someone you love has already shot. But then if you keep shooting, eventually you're going to make it your own somehow. And I do love the snapshot parts too, and I keep those, and those are for something separate. Those are going to be for work that we keep in our house in a photo album. But this stuff, I just put the ones out that resonate with me. Can we go back to that last one?
This one here?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
And this one, again, just to speak of how you choose your photos, how you know what to, like, I shot this window 1,000 different times. And it's hard, like we said, to make it fresh. And so if you think about it as a function of time, and if you're showing change, if you're doing family work, like we had a shot earlier where the trees were all bare. And in this shot, the trees are all green. It's an entirely different season. Mm-hmm. And in keeping track of looking for things that are timely as well, we put up a thank you sign in our window for all of the emergency responders and essential workers. Like, these are things that are a little different. This is what you look for in order to create something that stands out, I think.
And for you, is light, is it the moment, or is it light that draws you most of the time? And what do you?
Well, light always has to be there.
Mm-hmm.
If the light's not there, I'm not that person that's going to fight with the light. I look for the light. And I trust that whatever it is I'm thinking or that I'm feeling will somehow come across somewhere in there. The previous photo with the birds, that was just sheer joy at being outside again.
And I think we talked off camera a little bit about this idea of photographing. What's the story you have with that about photographing joy?
Oh, that's right. I was a TA for a long time for Amy Arbus, and one of her assignments for her class was to photograph joy and photograph pain. And she said when the students brought the work in and put it up on the walls without saying which was which, it was hard to tell. And I find that fascinating about photography, the fact that you can bring to it whatever it is you're feeling as a viewer. And to me, that's a successful photo too.
So in a lot of ways, it sounds like it's become a collaboration, or at least you're getting your daughter's buy-in in a lot of these pictures, or she's participating. But let's bring your husband in terms of talking about this story. How did this come about? What was the idea here?
Well, this was his idea. I mean, he's been wonderful too. There are times where he knows, he's in the photography business as well, so he knows when the light is just right, or he knows when something special is happening with Esme, and he'll stop and pause and make sure I get what I need to get. But he also brings some ideas too. This one was totally his idea. He wanted it for posterity, and I love it.
Well,
and it's true, this is a time that is never, it might repeat, but this is an unusual time.
Never in exactly the same way, right? And certainly not with your daughter and you guys at the same age as the same time period. It's a lovely picture. And I think speaks to this idea of joy and pain all in once. Yeah.
At the same time, but also we used to have my photos up on the wall, some that have gone to shows and come back, and I realized about a week into this, we needed to take all those down and have white walls.
Well, no, explain why. Why? I mean, why did you feel that way? Were you couldn't look at the work? You wanted to change things up, or what was the reason to?
If I was seeing my own photos in there, it just took me out of it entirely.
Got it.
Visually, it was an extra element that didn't need to be there.
You've had a long history prior to being a mother. You had a history of looking inward in terms of creating your work, and you did a very well-received project on what it meant to be single. And part of that project, you asked singles what they liked best about being single and what was the worst. So let me ask you, what do you like best about being a mom? And maybe the twist on it, mom who is a photographer, and what is the biggest challenge?
Well, the biggest challenge is time. Honestly, having enough time. Especially right now, given that childcare is extremely limited. And, you're never really alone. Even when we had childcare before, I worked from home, so I would come to my office to work, but she's always there. But that's also the great part. She's always there, and she's awesome. And, I'd done all this other work about, my family had drilled in ideas about getting married, having kids, getting a real job, and I did none of those things. So I did a lot of work on getting right with myself and being enough for myself, just me. And it was all kind of surprising when I got married and got pregnant, and it happened quickly. And that previous photo was about me feeling like I was disappearing in a lot of this.
And for you, is that something that you conceive as a shot list or an image you have in your mind, or are you attaching the meaning? Are you discovering the meaning after you've made the image?
It's kind of happening as we go along. I'll start to see something. I don't get a lot of chances to shoot when I do a whole setup with her. She's got limited patience, and she always takes over and starts bringing her toys in. So I've only got like 2 goes. And I saw it starting to happen the first time. It was just something I was feeling. I was feeling not at ease, and something was going on. And then I saw it happen, and then I went back and I got it right.
You are a big believer in this idea that however you're feeling subconsciously will come out in your photographs. Can you speak to that a bit? I
just feel like, again, it's the whole thing about the subconscious being streets ahead. The great photographs, what are they? I forget who said this, but they involve the hand, the heart, and the eye.
That's a Cartier-Bresson quote.
That's
sure.
Cool. Yeah, and a lot of people get the hand and the eye, and they don't get the heart part. But I feel like it's really important. And it has to be there in you, and it has to be going on.
It is part of your goal. Certainly, in one sense, it's to document your family and have that record. But as an artist, is it also important to you to not explain the images, to leave a bit of ambiguity there for the viewer to bring their own thoughts to it?
That's the kind of photographs I end up choosing in the editing process. You know, I like the ones that leave a little mystery. And those are the photographs I'm attracted to when I buy books, when I go see shows. I like the ones where I'm involved in the process. I don't want someone to just describe to me over and over and over, this is what happened, this is what you should look at, this is what I want you to think. I like the kind of work where, you know, it's a journey we go on together. And that's what I try and edit in mine.
I think it definitely comes through in a number of these shots, but just in terms of your progression as an artist, I'm interested in how, and I think the audience would be interested in knowing how you were able to move yourself from the literal into something that was more mysterious, or is there a process? I mean, was that helped you get there?
Oh, it was such a long process. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in one class. I feel like it's not easy, but you have to start being aware of what drives you in your own life, what's important to you.
I'm going to put a question in here from Nicholas that fits into this, and maybe it speaks to this idea of you've got to shoot a lot of pictures that didn't quite make it, or you were talking about the blurry pictures. Nicholas says these images seem to be getting better and stronger as they go along. The question, somebody took the question away. He's asking if they erased it before I got to read it all. But did you feel that way as you worked on the project, that things were getting stronger and better as you went along?
I did, because, you know, when you start, you're doing the description. This is what happened. And as you do it every day, as you're involved with the same subject material every day, you really start to question the why. Why are you making the photos? Why are you taking this action? What does this mean to you?
How about the story behind this picture, and maybe also, yeah, go ahead, Jennifer, the story that goes with it.
This one, well, we went away. We were supposed to rent a cabin with the extended family, and everybody else had to drop out, basically, or very much delay their trip because of COVID concerns and exposure and quarantines. And so we had the place to ourselves. And I was so excited because it meant 1 million photos. My poor husband, he's gotten used to the fact that vacations are not really vacations for me. I work. And about a week after we got back, I got an email from somebody who followed me on Instagram, who was an editor at Nat Geo, and they said they wanted to use the photos for a story on traveling during a pandemic, which was surprising to me because I make these photos, you know, for me and as a diary, and I hope they mean more, but again, as I said, I'm always kind of surprised.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to get there. You've had this experience before too, where, you know, doing the thing that you feel passionate about. And you've often talked about in the impetus for some of your projects is to photograph the things that keep you up at night.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's always, you know, I get to a point frequently where I just say, you know what, I don't care anymore. Like, I've tried to make photos to impress other people. I've tried to do the format that everybody else likes, the landscape, still life portrait, landscape, still life. I've tried that, it doesn't work. And whenever I go, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to do what I want to do. And that's when something kind of clicks for me.
It's really good advice. And then how did that learning, speak to that learning in terms of portfolio reviews and maybe some experiences you've had along the way showing your work?
Well, I mean, it hasn't been an easy go showing the work. It's been wonderful too. I've had great times at portfolio reviews, but I've certainly had people look at my work and say, I don't know what to say, you know? They say, I don't know what to tell you. I don't like this kind of emotional work. It feels like art therapy, you know? And I remember one time at Photo Lucida, somebody said to me, oh, so you're doing art therapy. And it was meant to be a little dismissive. And then that night at the keynote, Alex Soth was the speaker, and the first thing he said is, all art is therapy.
Wow,
We're like,
wow.
well, there it is.
So there's a comment here that a lot of the images look like Caravaggio, and are you influenced by painting?
Probably on some level. I look at a lot of artwork, not just photography. And I tend to like the paintings that are very cinematic. And I like movies and shows that are dark like this and have flashes of light and spots of light and feel a little velvety. That's what I love. And I think your eye gravitates towards what you love.
So if your singles work was inspired lighting wise by Lost in Translation, is there a movie or two that you could point to that you find inspiration for in this work?
Oh gosh, I don't know. It's a good question. I'll have to think about it.
Well, maybe I'll ask it another way. What have you been watching during quarantine?
Honestly, nothing.
Nothing, really?
I don't really have a lot of time these days. We watched one series and I can't remember which one it was. Oh, we watched Homeland.
Okay.
That was what we watched. That was the one thing we got through in the beginning. But now it's mostly, kid and then coming into my office to work and sleeping.
Well, as we're starting to get towards the end of the sequence here, and then we're going to have some Q&A, share with everybody, Jennifer, your editing process. I mean, I notice you've got some prints there on the walls. How do you go about, you're continuing to work on this project, but when does the printing and sequencing start?
I'm not sure for this one. Generally what happens is when I get to a point where I feel completely stuck and like I don't know where I'm going, I don't know what anything means, that's when I print everything. I get Adorama prints, just little 4x6, and I tack everything up to these foam core boards that are against my wall. And I live with them for a while and I see which ones still interest me a couple weeks later. And then those are the keepers. And then I can look at those and I can say, oh, I have way too many golden hour shots. I have way too many playground shots. What do I need to fill in that was actually a part of our lives? Or, I'm not showing the fear properly. I'm not showing, whatever narrative element is missing. And then I can go back and fill it in. That's how I've done it in the past. But given that this is more of a diary, I'm not sure how this is going to work. So right now, I'm still continuing just to photograph everything as it happens to make sure I have a record. Like this is us, basically our lives went to the playgrounds this summer after they opened. And this is what it looks like. We're all wearing masks. She's forgotten how to hug other kids. We're starting to play with people again. And what does that look like?
So it seems very much that you, in the course of your career so far, you have embraced this idea of not knowing the ending, not knowing where it's headed. It is a process of discovery.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it would be boring if you knew the beginning, middle, and end. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure other people whose work I love work that way. And it's a matter of finding the creative way to do that. But I just tend to go a different route. And these are about, everything's moved outdoors. Her ballet class is outdoors. But I'm sensing that it's coming again, this winter time where you can't take a toddler out twice a day. And we're stuck indoors with each other. What is that going to look like?
Well, Jennifer, we're going to do a bit of Q&A here. And I want to start it off by, I asked you what the most challenging thing is as a mom, and a mom who's also an artist. And you talk about not having enough time. So how do you go about making sure once it gets past the novelty and but it's an ongoing project, how do you structure things so that you are continuing to make photographs? That
part I'm still figuring out. I had a little break over the summer. My husband wasn't working as much. He works for a company that does live events, and they just didn't have any. So he helped out a lot more with the baby. And now that's picking up again. So he's working more, and it's been about, oh my gosh, it's been a month already. So it's been a month of me getting used to being back on deck with her. Gotcha. Most of the time. And I'm noticing the shooting has definitely gone down. And I need to figure out a way to get on a schedule again with that.
But when it's most successful, when you're successful at it, is it that you say, I'm going to set aside an hour each day, or is it more often that you just make a point of having the camera out?
It's more that I make a point of having the camera out.
Okay.
And what I was doing for a while is about once a week, I would get the itch to do one of the studio setup shots. And I could do that, pull all that stuff out. But, you know, that was more in the spring when the weather wasn't as nice. When the weather's nice, I'm just so focused on getting her out and letting her exercise and letting her play that the studio shooting has gone by the wayside. So all the shots lately are in the park.
Gotcha.
You know, that's why like the subject matter changes. And so what I do usually is I'll shoot and I'll either take care of some of that when she naps at lunch or after she goes to bed. I usually have an hour or two of energy and I'll come in my office and do it then.
So there's a specific Leica technical question. Someone wants to know how you choose whether you use the Leica Q or the Leica Cl. And you said you only take, only have like 2 goes with her. Which camera helps you get what you want more easily?
Well, lately the CL, because I'm using a zoom lens on it.
Gotcha.
And I know I sacrifice a little sharpness with that, but I'm okay with that. And
so having that flexibility of the CL, you're using that more often than the Q. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Gotcha. Definitely.
And then another editing question, your process in terms of tracking and are you shooting and editing right away? Is there a pause in between? How are you tracking your progress?
Well, I generally try to get the photos loaded every night, and I don't always post them right away. Sometimes I sit with them for a little while. And generally what has happened, which has been an odd thing for me, is that I've been asked to do more talks. And with every talk, I have to get a new set of images together. So it's almost like, I mean, I don't have time to sit here and go over all of these and work, but I've been more and more familiar with them just in giving presentations. I have to look at them more.
So that's interesting to me. So maybe in the past where you would work on something and kind of keep it in a very small circle and maybe show it to an editor that you have an ongoing trust with. In this case, because of you've been very busy, you've asked to do these lectures, setting those deadlines or having those deadlines imposed on you has been very helpful?
It's been super helpful. Super helpful. I mean, I've done other projects where I didn't really put anything online for a very long time. You know, I did a whole project on my pregnancy that I still haven't posted the entire thing because I haven't thought it out. I haven't crafted it. I haven't filled in what I need to fill in. And this work is a totally new way of working for me. In editing, processing, putting it out there, and then reshaping it as I go along.
That's very, I mean, the role of limitations in your story in terms of space, subject matter, it sounds like you found a great deal of creativity out of a necessity in the situation you're in. But then the imposed deadlines, I think, is creatively is often overlooked in how that can move your work forward.
And that's why I did, you know, portfolio reviews and classes. Like I continued doing those for a long time, and it was exactly that, a deadline.
So you talk about your teaching a bit. You've taught a number of self-portrait workshops for the Leica Academy. You've taught programs at the main photo workshops, and I know you have a program coming up October 15th at ICP.
Yes.
What's the title of that?
This one is called Revision, Seeing Your Work with Fresh Eyes.
Very good.
And this is, sometimes we shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot, and we get so caught up in the how to shoot and what you're shooting and how to shoot it right that you kind of forget what that original spark was that made you love shooting.
Interesting.
And at some point you show your work to enough people and they'll start to ask you, why are you doing this? What do you care about? What is your passion? What is your voice? And finding your voice is, I think, the hardest part about being a photographer. And so this is kind of to help people look at their own work and look at their own patterns and to focus in on what they really love to shoot, because that's the direction you should go towards.
Excellent.
The thing that you love and that challenges you. So it's about how to take that passion and use it to either start a new project, to finish an existing project, but just to get more in touch with who you are as a photographer.
It sounds exciting. And I know we haven't posted it yet, but we'll be teaching for the Leica Academy in the new year. So people want to set that aside knowing that's coming. We've gotten some questions in terms of where do you have an exhibit in mind or a book or both when you're for this project or others? What's the end result?
Oh man, well, most of all, it's for me to figure out what's going on.
Oh, that's so important. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And it's funny, I never set out to do a book on each project. And now that I'm creating more and more work, I'm seeing this might all be a monograph. It could be a larger book, which I had never considered before. But I think it's a natural progression. At some point in your career, you stop and say, this needs to be a book. And how do I make it a really interesting book? And how do I make it different than viewing slides on the web?
Wow.
And I would like to do exhibits as well.
Well, I want to ask the audience if you have a couple other questions. We've got time for just a few more questions. Go ahead and enter them quickly. And Jennifer, you're talking about a book. You have a book coming out in November with Peanut Press.
Yes, Peanut Press.
And what's going to be in that book?
This is from the hotel series that I did about all of my failed relationships. And I kind of went back and recreated all the breakups to figure out what all these men had in common. And of course, I was the common denominator. And with that project, as soon as I found that out, that I was the problem, that project stopped. But yeah, this book is with Peanut Press with Ashley Stoll and David Carroll, and I'm really excited. It's part of a whole series of 8 books that are all coming out.
Of 8 books. Oh, wow. Okay. Another question from the audience. They want to know about green space, and have you found it difficult in the city to find green space for the project?
Very, very hard. Well, and it's, there are parts of Central Park you can go to, but not many. And then you don't get great light in the green space. And I'm also really aware when I go out to playgrounds and to feel like Central Park we can go to and run around, but I'm very aware of other people's kids. I'm not going to post a lot of photos or take photos of other people's kids without their permission. So if she is out in a park playing with kids somewhere, I have to really wait until she's off by herself.
Gotcha.
To get a good shot.
Wow. Yeah. All of these creative or these limitations that have caused you to work in different ways. I think I read in the Leica blog that you did that there's a Dion Arbus quote that has meant a lot to you.
Oh, was it the one? And I think it was Lisette Modell who told it to her about the more specific you are, the more general it'll be.
Exactly.
And that, I think, is huge. And again, with this work, it's so specific to us and to our experience. Like, I really thought it was going to be friends and families just chiming in because they know us and they like us. Like, it's still surprising to me that it resonates with other people. But it's something we're all going through. We all have fear surrounding this quarantine. We're all going stir crazy. We're all looking for little moments of joy here and there.
There's are lots of I call them knowledge nuggets that you've shared along the way here that I think that people have gotten a lot from, but especially that idea in terms of, you know, what is specific to you can actually be something the general public can connect with, and also your idea of photographing what keeps you up at night. I think is really in these times very very timely, very important concept for artists to be thinking about. I'm pointing to a question here that in terms of an ongoing visual diary, but when do you know that one chapter is done and it's time to move on to another? What is an indication to you as an artist that a project has gotten to its conclusion?
Usually it's just a gut feeling. You know, usually when I feel like I've learned everything I needed to learn, and once I'm clear on what it is I've learned, when I check and see whether I've shown that visually, if that makes sense. Like, I went through the feelings, I felt what I needed to feel, I made photos. Is there anything missing about what I was feeling that needs to go in the photos?
But when the image doesn't match what you are feeling, when you have a concept, you want an emotion you want to evoke, and it's not there, what's the process that then you get over that hump, that you get past it not working?
Well, you've got to admit that it's not working, which is so hard for any photographer in the world, because we were there, we have a connection, we know what we experienced, and it's hard to admit, okay, it's just not here in this two-dimensional photograph. I didn't get it. Mm-hmm. And then figuring out how to go at it again. You know, do I need to keep trying? Is the light wrong? Do I need to change the light? Is the expression wrong? Is it the wrong time of day? Is it the wrong room in the house?
These are all good points. I'm going to give you an admittedly tough question that was asked by Anonymous as our final question here. What question about yourself is it you are trying to answer in your work?
Oh, it's so many. It's so many. I mean, it changes all the time. That's why I feel like I have more and more projects. But I think it all goes down to this, you know, the age-old existential, why am I here? What do I love?
I did great points. And I think simply asking the question is the step that oftentimes artists miss. And it becomes so crucial. And you've shared a lot of great tips here, Jennifer. It's really been fun. I want to let people know how to stay in touch with you with your Instagram and your website, and also remind them about your program coming up. And most importantly, I don't have a slide about this, but you also were the founder of the Women's Photo Alliance. But the Women's Photo Alliance, they can find on Instagram. We'll put a link in the chat window as well. The Instagram for Women's Photo Alliance is?
WPA NYC.
Very good.
And it's also a group on Facebook, and it's for female and female identifying photographers. And we're just trying to get as much work out there in front of as many eyes as we can. Excellent.
I encourage everyone to check that out. We put the link in the chat window. Jennifer, thank you so much for your time and your stories. And I encourage everyone to follow your Instagram to see where this visual diary, where it goes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It has been a pleasure. Jennifer, thank you all for joining us. And we will see you next time on Leica Conversations.